Tools you can use to keep your skills sharp while you're stuck inside for the winter.
You need a shot timer because that which gets measured gets worked on. The Range Tech Timer is the official timer of Active Self-Protection because it is versatile, reliable, feature-rich, and very economical. Check out all it can do at the link below.
Hey guys, Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant. Welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. This is your Suck Less Saturday. Thanks for joining me. Listen, a lot of us are not going to be able to go outside and train. I live in the South, but it's not super cold, but it's wet all the time. We've had rain 6 days a week for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Makes it really hard to be on the range. Still teaching outside in it, so I understand your pain. I know some of you have it a lot worse than I do. One of the things that I use constantly is the different size targets, but the other thing I use is a SIRT pistol. All right. I'm not sponsored by SIRT pistol. This is just something I use. I use it as a tool. It has 4 really great functions that I use frequently. Number one, it has a resetting trigger, so it allows me to constantly press the trigger, and it keeps me out of the habit of some of the bad habits I may develop if I'm not moving a trigger all the time. Number two, I see the laser on the wall, so that represents my red dot, and it allows me to keep my vision open and not narrowly focused to the front sight. As you'll notice, I take the back sight's off altogether and completely so I don't see them. The other thing that it allows me to do is do diagnostic drills with other shooters because I can actually see their aiming process and how they press the trigger. And most importantly, this allows me to overcome what I see as one of the worst habits in shooting, and that's pinning the trigger. Where this habit came into gun shooting and pistol shooting, I can't really say. I know we taught it in precision rifle, but it serves a purpose there because if I'm on a bolt action rifle, I want to disturb the sights as little as possible because it's going to infer a lot of error, and the trigger's not going to move back anyway, so I'm going to run the bolt and get the trigger back to where it was. People feel like they're trading the pinning for more accuracy, but what they're basically doing is aiming a dead gun, slowly letting the trigger back out, which causes dead trigger quite often. So I use this to train around it. It's very useful for that because the trigger is very quick. One of the things you have to do is work on your speed constantly. You can only run so many sprints. It's the same thing with trigger speed. You can only do so much. So with the 3 targets, what I do is run some sprints on them until I feel fatigue set in, which surprisingly is not that, it doesn't take that long for the fatigue to come in. So I'm going to do a couple drills here so you guys can see it. I'll walk you through it. And on the large target, I'm going to press the trigger as quickly as I can for as long as I can. All right, and about right there, I feel my finger starting to slow down. That's as long as I can maintain that speed, so that's good. Now, I don't have to worry about error. The gun's not recoiling, so that's a bit artificial, but I'm practicing moving my finger as quickly as possible. Make sure you really emphasize your grip as you do it. Now I'm going to be on the medium-sized target, and I may be able to press it at the same speed. I didn't get a lot of dot wobble, but I'm going to change my vision to what I'm feeling, so it's always see and feel. Our brains are primarily divided into 2 big parts of processing for us. One is vision and the other is motor skills. Most of you think it's thinking, but motor skills play a big habit in this. So I want to see and feel what I'm doing. Let's see if I can keep the same pace up on the middle-sized target. Okay, so I had one error in the middle where it jumped up a little high. My finger's coming completely off the trigger. It has to at this speed, but it's still a pretty brisk pace. Now I'm going to go to the small size target, and I probably won't be able to go full speed on it. It'll tolerate very little error, but I'm going to chain it to my vision. I'm going to press the trigger only when the dot is inside of it, so I'm looking for a bit of movement. And you can hear by the difference in pace, it's a little bit slower. And my trigger finger starts to slow down. I can maintain 3 or 4 seconds of pretty continuous pressing, and then it gets a little bit slower as it goes along. This is a great and invaluable tool for you to get. They make it either Glock size or M&P size. If I had it to do over again, I'd probably get M&Ps. It's more close to the angle of the pistol I shoot. And as you can see with this trigger here, it resets nicely. Now I could pin it, slowly let it out and press again, but what I want to practice is this. And I'm practicing the speed of pace relative to the vision and what the target will allow, which is the way I want to shoot. I can practice transitions with it. The only bad thing is you can only see the red dot when you're prepping the trigger. And I know Cert Pistol makes a kind of hooded sight to represent the red dot. If you do practice that way, you're going to have to keep your finger on the trigger at all times, which may cause some real problems in your shooting. So make sure your transitions are super close or tightly connected. Make sure you practice some fingers off the trigger drills so that you keep that nice and honest. This is a great way to stay fresh. It's not super expensive. For about a half case of ammo, you get something that you can practice with all the time. It's easy to pick up, and then there's never any accidents because this is a non-functioning firearm. It won't hold ammo. Slide doesn't work. It simply has a laser inside of it that goes on and off as we go. There's also, you have a prepping one that can show you how you're prepping the trigger and then how you're firing. I just don't use that. I just watch the red dot, keep the prep on, and you notice it blinks off when I'm actually making a shot. That's like me managing recoil, and I use the binary process of saying that was a hit or that was a miss. Okay, great way to practice. The only thing we're missing still is recoil. There is no substitute for actual recoil. If you can keep it at a 1-to-5 ratio of dry to live, you're going to find that you can really do it. If you get far out of that, sometimes your dry practice will not represent your live practice, but this will help quite a bit. A warning to you guys that have double action, single action triggers. Make sure that your ratio is appropriate to that, because what I find is a lot of people practice on double action and they do exclusive double action presses. And what will happen is when they fire 2 shots, one will always be low, which they blame on the double action, which is not necessarily true. It's usually that they put as much force into the single action follow-up shot as they do to double action, and it drops the sights down. So if you're going to do a DASA, make sure you do majority of your practice in single action, and then make sure on the draw that you at least get a double. There's some ways to work with your triggers on that. You don't have to let them all the way out. The Glock, you can open the breech face a little bit so you can practice that way. My H and Ks will allow me to move the trigger a little bit. All right, there you go, guys. The rain is starting again. Glad to be inside. I hope that helps you. Stay fresh with your skills. As always, measure, refine, and perform.